Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Going through the late games on Saturday for college football week 8. This is the second video. If you didn't watch the first one, I already went through 6 early games, so you might want to watch that video first. But I think I got 6 or 7 more to go through. These are all night games on Saturday. Let's get it started.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
Let's start out with some SEC action. We got Ole Miss on the road at Auburn here. Auburn catching 6.5 points at home, total sitting at 55.5. So public seems to be all over Ole Miss in this one. This line was at an even 6. On Tuesday morning, it jumped up to 6.5. That's where it's still at now. Maybe a little bit of action coming in on Auburn now that it's at 6.5, but public seems to still be heavy on Ole Miss. So Ole Miss finally snapped the losing streak to Auburn last year. Heading into 2022, Auburn had beaten Ole Miss 6 straight times. Ole Miss got them, though, 48-34 at home in Oxford. Now they go on the road to Auburn, where they haven't won a game since 2015. Hugh Freeze gets to take another shot at his old team here. He was the head coach at Ole Miss from 2012 to 2016. I don't think that's really a factor. I mean, he's been gone 7 years, and it's not even his first time playing him. He coached against Ole Miss in 2021 with Liberty and got beat up. Malik Willis was pretty awful in that game. He threw 3 picks. But anyway, let's match these two teams up on the field. Auburn offensively is pretty one-dimensional, which is what we've come to expect from this Auburn offense. I think this year's particularly disappointing, though, because I think a lot of people, including myself, were expecting to see the passing offense improve this year. I mean, they brought in Peyton Thorne through the transfer portal, and he was throwing the ball a little bit at Michigan State last year. So I thought bringing him in there, I thought we'd see Auburn throw the ball around a little bit. Definitely hasn't been the case. Auburn's 119th in effective pass, 32nd in effective rush. In fact, Auburn hasn't even been attempting to develop the passing game. They're running the ball in 61% of their offensive snaps this season. That's the 11th most in the FBS. So, I mean, this is run-first program all the way. And that plays right into the strength of the Rebels' defense. Ole Miss is 31st in effective rush defensively and 73rd in effective pass, but it's been a bit up and down. Just look at their last 2 games as examples. I mean, against Arkansas, Ole Miss held them to 29 carries, 36 yards on the ground, so the run defense was excellent. But in the LSU game the week before that, 37 carries, 223 yards. So LSU was able to get the run game going on Ole Miss. I'm going to take the numbers from that LSU game with a grain of salt, though. I watched that entire game start to finish, as most of us did. I had Ole Miss as my top bet that week. And that game was just wild back and forth. I personally trust this Ole Miss defense. I mean, the week before LSU, they went on the road in Tuscaloosa and held Alabama's run game to 45 carries, 131 yards, just 2.9 yards per carry. So I think Ole Miss defense will do fine against the Auburn rushing attack. On the other side of the ball, we should see a battle. Ole Miss offense on the road against Auburn's defense. As we know, Ole Miss offense is dangerous. They're 17th in yards per game, 21st in rushing yards per game, 44th in passing yards per game. So it's multifaceted, it's dynamic. This Ole Miss offense is definitely dangerous. But you know what? We've seen this Ole Miss offense get neutralized a couple times already this season. Now, when you think of Ole Miss, you think Lane Kiffin, right? You think Jackson Dart. You think dialing up these complex, deep passing schemes. But actually, Ole Miss likes to run the ball first, pass second. I mean, Ole Miss is 32nd in run frequency this year in the FBS. And if you look at Judkins' game logs running the football, they're having trouble getting him going this year. Really, the LSU game was the only one where he was a major factor. But here's the thing about Auburn's defense. You would assume they have an excellent run defense, right? I mean, they always do. It's Auburn. But actually, it hasn't been that great this year. They've struggled trying to stop the run. Auburn's allowing 4.8 yards per carry on the season. That's just 104th in the FBS. They're 85th in rushing yards per game and just 60th in effective rush. So this Auburn defense is not that good against the run this year. We just saw LSU run the ball all over Auburn last week, 39 carries, 238 yards. We just saw Texas A&M run the ball all over Auburn, 33 carries, 209 yards. UMass even ran the ball on Auburn. Point being, Ole Miss is more than capable of getting Judkins going against this Auburn defense, which is why I feel like I have to lay the points in this one. I mean, I know it's a good spot for Auburn. You got them coming back home after a blowout loss. That's usually a spot I like to bet a team, but I'm just having a hard time getting behind Auburn right now, and Ole Miss is coming off a bye. So I'll let you know for sure on the live show at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, but I'm leaning Ole Miss minus 6.5 next game. Let's talk some Big 12. We got TCU on the road at Kansas State here. Kansas State laying 6.5 points at home. This line's actually down from 7.5. It was at 7.5 earlier in the week. total sitting at 59.5. So like I said, Monday morning, this line was at 7.5 and actually came in heavy on TCU, dropped the number down to 6.5. Since then, since the line dropped, public's been coming in heavy on Kansas State. Wouldn't be surprised to see this one close at an even 7. So Kansas State has been beaten up on TCU in recent years. Obviously, the one that's fresh in our heads is the Big 12 championship from last year. I actually lost both these games last year. In October, when they played in the regular season, I took Kansas State. TCU took that one. Then in the Big 12 championship, I took TCU money line. Kansas State obviously won that one. So I went 0-2 on Kansas State TCU matchups last season. So let's start by taking a look at TCU, and obviously Chandler Morris was hurt last week and he's most likely still hurt. I think he's going to miss a couple more weeks. So TCU was forced to give the start to Josh Hoover, a freshman, making his first career start. So how do they handle it? By dropping him back to pass 58 times. 58 pass attempts in the game, and he handled it pretty well. I mean, he wasn't perfect. 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 143 passer rating, but a freshman making his first career start, 58 pass attempts, I mean, he handled it well. And you would think TCU needs him to be solid again in this one because Kansas State's defense has been really good against the run. They're actually ranked 20th in effective rush, 40th in rushing yards per game allowed, and 58th in yards per carry allowed. That's not to say TCU can't run the ball on tough run defenses, though. Both West Virginia and Iowa State both have top 35 run defenses. TCU struggled to get the run game going against WVU, but against Iowa State, they averaged 5 yards per carry, so it's not out of the question that TCU is still able to run the ball in Kansas State. And if you take a closer look at Kansas State defensively, the run defense seems to be trending in the wrong direction. In their first 3 games, opponents were averaging just 50 rushing yards per game, 1.8 yards per carry. In their last 3, over 166 yards per game, 4.8 yards per carry on this Kansas State defense. And it's not like they saw elite rushing attacks either. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, UCF is a strong rushing team, so UCF, I'll give Kansas State a pass for that one. They run on almost anybody, but Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, these are not teams that should be giving you problems in the run game. Kansas State's run defense might be a bit overvalued right now. So I think on paper, there's enough evidence here to suggest TCU will run the ball in Kansas State, but that's on paper because you have to add in the aspect that they have a freshman quarterback starting. Kansas State knows that. What's to stop Kansas State from just loading the box and forcing him to make throws? Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, use your judgment because Kansas State's been vulnerable to the pass this year. Kansas State's allowing 274 pass yards per game, which is all the way back at 114th in the country. That's how I would play it if I was Kansas State's DC. I would force this freshman Josh Hoover to make plays on my secondary. Even though I've been struggling to defend the pass, I wouldn't care. I'd force the freshman to do it. We'll see how it plays out. Now, on the other side of the ball, we got Kansas State offense, and what's going on with the Kansas State offense is kind of wild right now. So you would think, just looking at this offense on paper entering the season, that they were going to throw the ball a lot with a quarterback like Will Howard coming back. But this offense is powered by the run game. They're 9th in rushing yards per game, 16th in yards per carry, 7th in effective rush. Kansas State can run the ball. And TCU has not proven to us that they can stop the run. I mean, the West Virginia game, I'll give them a pass because WVU's got a strong rushing attack this year. So 201 yards on 4.7 yards per carry. I'll give TCU a pass for that one. But Iowa State, Cyclones ran for 215 yards on 5.8 yards per carry. That was also the last time TCU went on the road. I'm not seeing any evidence here that TCU is capable of stopping this Kansas State rushing attack. And now you add this freshman quarterback to the mix. And if you don't know who this is, Avery Johnson. Kansas State's got this freshman quarterback, right? Now, when I first heard that he was going to be splitting snaps with Will Howard, I was like, what the hell? I like Will Howard. Like, what? Why? But last game against Texas Tech, this kid splitting snaps was 8 of 9 with 77 passing yards. Okay, whatever. 8 of 9, 77 yards. Who cares? On the ground, he ran the ball 13 times for 90 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. I think he broke a Kansas State record with 5 rushing touchdowns or something. I read he broke some kind of record. So TCU defensively doesn't have the option to sell out and stop the run. They can't do that because Will Howard and this freshman both appear to be able to just pick apart this secondary if they try to do that. That's what Kansas State's going to do. We'll have to see if their freshman can take advantage of it. We know Will Howard can. All signs point to Kansas State putting up a big number in this one. If you don't trust the freshman quarterback from TCU, take Kansas State -6.5. I think I might go over in this one. I'm a little frustrated though. This one was at 56.5. It's been bet all the way up to 59.5. Over is definitely the heavy public side. I might go Kansas State team total and Kansas State -6.5. I haven't fully decided on how I'm going to bet the game yet, but I'm on Kansas State. I think they score a lot of points. I'll let you know the final decision on the live show next game. Got some more Big 12 action here. Texas Tech on the road at BYU. Line is BYU +3. This one's down from 4.5, so it's been moving towards BYU. Total sitting at 50.5. So this line did a bit of a roller coaster was at 4, and early actually came in on Texas Tech. They bet it up to 4.5, but since Tuesday morning when that number hit 4.5, everybody's been coming in on BYU. Number's been bet all the way down to an even 3. I even saw a couple 2.5s out there. I'm going to skip this one for now. BYU's been throwing the ball a lot. They're 25th in pass frequency on the season. They haven't really been good at it. They're just 83rd in passing yards per game and 98th in yards per attempt. Texas Tech's got a decent pass defense, and an unsuccessful passing attack against Texas Tech just screams over. Clock stops a lot, and you know Texas Tech likes to run that fast-paced offense. So I guess I'd lean over, but I'm going to take a deeper look at this one. I haven't really gotten a chance yet. Next game. Michigan State. Not exactly the heated rivalry that it is normally. I mean, this year, Michigan State catching 24.5 points at home. Just wow. Total sitting at 45.5. So there's actually a decent amount of action coming in on Michigan State. Public is leaning Michigan, obviously. Public is on the Wolverines, but money's about split even. So there's sharps out there that like Sparty in the points in this one. So Michigan is just 2-3 in their last 5 matchups against Sparty. Last season, we saw a decisive 29-7 win. Not sure how relevant these last 4 or 5 games are. I mean, I know this is a rivalry, but Michigan's program is at an all-time high right now. Michigan State's program is at an all-time low. Last season, one of Michigan State's only redeemable qualities was the passing attack with Peyton Thorne. Obviously, he's gone. He's down at Auburn. Noah Kim took over at quarterback, and he's not having the best season, completing just 56.9% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks. And Sparty doesn't have much of a run game either. I mean, 109th, 107th, 101st in rushing yards per game, yards per carry, and effective rush. So Michigan State can't really run the ball either. Quarterback is struggling. There's just not many positive points for this Michigan State offense right now. So probably not the best news for Michigan State that the Wolverines defense is one of the best in the country this year. I mean, 5th overall, 13th in effective pass, 5th in effective rush. I mean, I feel this goes without saying, but I don't know how we can count on Michigan State to score points in this game. Now, one criticism about Michigan that's actually fair is they have not seen a legitimate offense yet, and that has weight. According to BetaRank, the strongest offense Michigan's seen this entire season is Minnesota, who sits to 63rd, and we know how bad that offense is. So that has some truth to it, that Michigan hasn't seen a legitimate offense yet. But does that even matter? I mean, Michigan State's offense is just 85th, 51st in effective pass, 101st in effective rush. Now, on the other side of the ball, if you're betting Michigan State, if you're taking the points, here's where you can maybe see a couple angles. Michigan, as we know, loves to run the ball. Blake Corum averaging 5.7 yards per carry on the season. Wolverines are rated 3rd in effective rush. I mean, with that offensive line, I think we can all agree that Michigan has one of the more dominant run games in the FBS. But the strength of the Michigan State defense is actually stopping the run, and that's been the case for multiple years now under Scotty Hazelton at defensive coordinator. They're terrible against the pass, and they have been every single year under him, but they've been pretty good against the run, and this year's no different. They're 40th in effective rush, 34th in rushing yards per game allowed, and 39th in yards per carry allowed. So Sparty actually can defend the run a little bit. But again, we have to ask, does it really matter? I mean, it's Michigan. Michigan just played Rutgers, who also has a pretty highly ranked run defense. Rutgers is 39th in effective rush. Michigan State 40th. So they're right next to them. Michigan rushed for 200 yards on 5 yards per carry. So I just don't see it. I don't have much hope here for Sparty. And then if you want to talk about the passing game, it's just not even a discussion. I mean, J.J. McCarthy's been great. Yes, Michigan's a run-first program, but we know this kid can play. 195.9 passer rating on the season. That's the 2nd highest in the FBS. Michigan State's pass defense allowing 13.3 yards per pass attempt. 105th in the FBS. I mean, this is bad. Look, I know there's going to be a lot of you that are just taking the points from Michigan State, and you're like, guys, hey, it's a rivalry. They'll find a way to keep it close. I mean, I see your point. We've seen that happen several times, but I don't know if I could get there with this one. I mean, I don't really want to lay 24.5 either, so I think I'm just going to take the over at 46.5. I could see Michigan State hitting on an early touchdown with like a weird-ass trick play, like a double reverse pass or something crazy. I'm sure Harbaugh will run up the score on them, so give me the over at 46.5. I'd lean Michigan if I'm picking a side, though. ACC is up next. We got Duke on the road at Florida State. Noles are laying 14.5 points at home here. And total sitting at 49.5. This number was at 14 earlier in the week. It's now at 14.5. Looks like we got a pros versus public set up here. Public is slightly leaning Florida State. Sharp action slightly leaning Duke. I'm going to skip this one for now. Obviously, tough to make a bet on this game if we don't know if Riley Leonard's going to be at quarterback for Duke. I don't think he's going to play. I mean, he was on crutches last week, so I doubt he plays, but I'm reading reports that he might play, so I'm going to wait till tomorrow morning on the live show, 10:30 a.m., to make a final decision on this one. Next game. Pac-12 championship game rematch here. Utah on the road in SoCal. USC laying a full 7 points at home. That number's up from 6.5. Total sitting at 52.5. So like I said, this line was at 6.5 on Monday morning, but the public came in heavy on USC, and we've been sitting at 7 basically all week. Action still coming in at USC, even at 7. As far as matchup history goes, the Utes have now taken 3 straight against USC, including an absolute beatdown in the Pac-12 championship game last year, 47-24. To be fair, Caleb Williams did injure his ankle or was it his knee? I forget exactly what he injured, but he was limping noticeably in the second half of that Pac-12 championship game. Utah still deserved to win. Give him all the credit, but 47-24, Caleb Williams not being able to run probably had something to do with that. You actually got to go all the way back to 2020 to find the last time USC beat Utah. So obviously the lead story with USC right now has got to be Caleb Williams coming off probably his worst game in his collegiate career last week against Notre Dame. Now let's give some credit to the Notre Dame defense. They were excellent in that game, but a lot of the blame does belong on Caleb Williams. Just 199 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, just 100 passer rating in the game. Those numbers are just wildly different than the Caleb Williams numbers we're used to seeing, and they're also wildly different than the Caleb Williams numbers we saw against Utah last year. In his 2 games against the Utes last year, he averaged 372 yards per game, threw 8 touchdowns to just 1 pick, a 168 passer rating. Now, Utah's defense this year is even better than it was last year. Problem is, I don't know how equipped they are to deal with this USC offense. Utah specializes in shutting down the run. Against the pass, we've seen a few quarterbacks able to make plays on this Utah secondary. Now, they're still a great pass defense. They're 16th in effective pass. They're still top defense against the pass, but they're 70th in pass yards per game allowed and 61st in yards per pass attempt allowed. We saw Graham Mertz throw for 333 yards in week 1 on Utah's home field. But still, no question, this Utah defense will be the best defense Caleb Williams has seen all season. Now that you have the added element of USC having offensive line problems now, Caleb Williams was sacked 7 times total in the first 5 games combined. He's been sacked 10 times in his last 2 games alone. Utah is 4th in the country with 24 sacks already. And I can almost promise you USC is not going to be running the ball much in this game. USC is capable of running the ball. I mean, I know the focal point of the offense is Caleb Williams in the passing attack, but they actually average 159 rushing yards per game on the ground. 5.4 yards per carry, 40th in effective rush. They do have a run game, but this Utah run defense is so insane. On the season, Utah's allowing just 68 rush yards per game on 2.4 yards per carry. They're 2nd in effective rush. Nobody's running the ball on Utah this year, and there's just so much pressure on Caleb Williams in this game. I mean, first of all, you got the controversial statements and tweets, and I don't even care. I'm not even going to get into it, but you got that coupled with the fact that he's coming off a bad game. He's not going to have run support, or most likely won't have run support in this one, and he's going to see heavy pressure. I mean, it's all on Caleb Williams. Yeah, it's a make or break game for Caleb. Now, on the other side of the ball, I mean, I guess Cam Rising's just not playing football this year. I mean, I stopped even asking or trying to figure out his status anymore. Nobody's even written an article about it in 3 days, so I don't even think anyone else cares anymore either. I'm just going to assume he's not playing football this year. So I guess we're just rolling with the Utah offense as it is, which is extremely reliant on the run. Utah this year is just 125th in passing yards per game, 117th in yards per attempt, 112th in effective pass. I mean, they can run the ball, though. 53rd in rushing yards per game and 17th in effective rush. So they do have a run game. I will say the Utes run game tends to disappear against good defenses, though. Just 3.5 yards per carry against Florida, 2.1 yards per carry against UCLA, 1.8 yards per carry against Oregon State. So a good defense can basically just blank this Utah offense by taking away the run. Good news for the Utes. USC hasn't shown us they can take away the run at all. In fact, they're allowing 152 rushing yards per game on 4.2 yards per carry, 79th and 72nd in the FBS. They're rated 71st in effective rush. As far as what I'm betting, I mean, this one was a pretty easy decision for me. And when I say easy decision, I don't mean like it's a lock or it's definitely going to win. A team that's going to run the ball, control the clock, and place the better defense is going to pressure the quarterback. Getting a full touchdown, that's just a blind bet. So I'm on Utah +7. I don't know if Caleb Williams can cover a full touchdown by himself against this Utah team, because Utah's going to take away all of his help. I honestly think Utah's a live dog. I think they can win the game. So, like I said, taking the points, Utah +7. I'm actually out of time, and I wanted to do the Clemson-Miami game too, but I really got to get started on the NFL stuff. I'm leaning Clemson -3, though, if you want to know. I'm leaning Clemson -3 in that one. Live shows tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. We'll go through all the games. I'll make my final decisions. I got a couple guests coming, so if you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you want my top bets, parlays of the day, you want to join our Discord, anything like that, head over to kylekirms.com. The information is right there on the homepage. College football week 8. We had a great week. Let's follow it up with a great weekend. Remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord.